Pope Francis seems to be getting close to someone pretty interesting. Cardinal Luis Tagle. This guy could really shake things up for the Catholic Church. Their connection has definitely caught people's attention, and not always in a good way. Recently, the Pope welcomed everyone to Manila and the Cathedral Basilica of the Immaculate Conception. But now he's decided to share some thoughts about Cardinal Tagle. So, why now? What does this mean for the Church's influence around the globe? So please subscribe the channel. Let's dive into it. Pope Francis has been pretty open about his relationship with Cardinal Tagle, and it looks like they share a lot of the same values. Tagle is all about simplicity, hospitality, and really understanding what people need. Since he became Pope, Francis has been focused on making the Church more accessible to the poor. Tagle really embodied this message when he was in Manila, reaching out to those who needed it most. Their partnership really took off when Tagle became the prefect of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples in 2019. This is a significant role, often referred to as the Red Pope, and it gives him a lot of power, especially over missionary work in different parts of the world. By putting Tagle in this position, Pope Francis is signaling that he trusts him to help shape the future of Catholic evangelization, particularly in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, places that are super important for the Church's future. But it's not just a work relationship. Both the Pope and Tagle emphasize compassion over strict doctrine, conversation instead of division, and action rather than just talk. They've both faced some backlash from traditionalists, which has only strengthened their commitment to a more loving church. Tagle's humble and caring leadership style really aligns with what Pope Francis stands for. For example, during Typhoon Haiyan in 2013, Tagle showed incredible compassion and quick action, earning him a reputation as a leader who embodies the Church of Mercy, just like the Pope encourages. Tagle's background in theology and his inclusive approach to evangelization have made him a role model for many liberal Catholics worldwide. Pope Francis has made it clear that church leadership shouldn't be all about the clerical elite, but should reach out to those who feel forgotten. Lately, the Pope has made some comments that have people wondering about Tagle's role in the Vatican. While he hasn't laid out a long-term plan for the Cardinal, it seems like they're working towards something big together. Could Tagle's journey from Manila to the Vatican signal a shift in the Church's direction? With a background dedicated to serving the community and the poor, Cardinal Luis Tagle is definitely someone to keep an eye on. Blessed with a sharp mind and a deep soul from a young age, he decided to dive into theology and make a name for himself in the Catholic Church. Tagle really kicked off his leadership journey when he became the Archbishop of Manila in 2011. Filipino workers abroad cheered when Manila's Archbishop Luis Antonio Tagle was named a cardinal. A priest mentioned that Douglas's new role would be quite the challenge, taking the reins of one of the biggest Catholic dioceses in the world. Tagle quickly became known as a reformist, steering clear of the materialism and greed that marked the past leaders. He focused on caring for the Church and its people, diving into missionary work and fighting for justice. His sermons are heartfelt and resonate with the life experiences of millions, which is why he's become so popular. People even started calling him Asia's Francis. His rise to international fame came through several promotions that showcased his growing influence in the Vatican. While serving as the president of Caritas Internationalis, a Catholic charity that spans 165 countries, he tackled campaigns against poverty, hunger, and climate change. Known for his ability to bridge different cultures and ideas within the Church, he was chosen to lead evangelization efforts. His appointment as prefect of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples in 2019 was a game changer. This role placed him right in the heart of the Church's mission to spread the gospel worldwide. Tagle values cultural differences and has been actively involved in reshaping the Church's evangelization strategies, especially in Asia and Africa. But what does all this popularity really mean? It boils down to his knack for working in a globalized world. His diplomatic skills, paired with solid theological knowledge, have made him a leader capable of tackling the complexities facing the Church today. As Tagle's influence grows at the Vatican, people are starting to wonder, could he play an even bigger role, or maybe even be in the running for the next pope? If that happens, what would a church under Tagle's leadership look like? It might be a church that focuses on the marginalized, reflecting a new face of Catholicism. Under Pope Francis, the Church has shifted its focus to those on the fringes, often called a church for the poor. This vision has been bolstered by having Cardinal Luis Tagle alongside him. Together, they're all about advocating for justice, kindness, and compassion in society. Pope Francis has made it clear that the Church should be a sanctuary for outcasts. As president of Caritas International, Tagle has led efforts against hunger, provided shelter for refugees, and tackled climate change challenges. His ability to negotiate for resources and inspire action has made him a key player in the Church's charitable efforts. Listening is something Tagle emphasizes a lot in his work. He believes that if you really listen, you open yourself up to love, and those who love won't tire of listening. Unlike traditional top-down power structures, Tagle prefers conversation and actively seeks to hear from those on the margins. However, this focus on the margins isn't without its challenges. Some critics argue that when the Church's message gets presented this way, social issues might overshadow traditional doctrines. Detractors of the Church have accused Pope Francis and his supporters of straying from core Catholic values by being overly focused on political correctness. Still, they stand firm, knowing that if the Church doesn't tackle these pressing issues, it risks becoming irrelevant. Besides humanitarian work, Tagle is also in a great position to help push the Pope's vision forward. His work on interfaith relations shows that the Church is committed to fostering positive connections in a divided world. Talking about religious issues with people of other faiths can promote tolerance and unity, which is why Tagle embodies Pope Francis's main message. Through their combined efforts, they're trying to bring the Church closer to people, essentially building a modern version of Catholicism right before our eyes. Could this focus on the margins lead to a fresh understanding of the Church's mission in these rapidly changing times? There's a quiet power struggle behind the scenes, but it's always been there, shaping the authority of the Roman Catholic Church within the Vatican. This is a place where tradition meets modern culture, and these ideological battles play out daily. The ongoing tensions between reformists like Pope Francis and Cardinal Tagle and the conservatives create a captivating drama of unspoken conflicts. Pope Francis has pushed for reform during his papacy by challenging clericalism, advocating for a more decentralized church, and addressing sensitive topics like migration, climate change, and economic transparency. He's even issued a serious warning that without concrete action on climate change, Earth could become uninhabitable. You know, despite all the efforts being made, there are some pretty tough challenges out there. A lot of the ultra-conservative groups in the Catholic Church are really vocal about the changes happening, claiming they're a big departure from the Word of God. Cardinal Tagle's active role in the Vatican highlights this power struggle. He seems to fit into Pope Francis's vision of a church that's all about mercy and reaching out to those on the fringes. But not everyone is on board with that. His sensible way of managing things and focus on dialogue and participation clash with the more traditional views in Catholic theology. This has led to some high expectations and raised questions about what obstacles the head of the church might face. One of the biggest issues in this power struggle is financial oversight. Pope Francis has kicked off efforts to clean up the Vatican's financial institutions, and that's stirred up quite a bit of controversy. Tagle, being involved in the management of charitable activities, is all for these reform initiatives and has been pushing for more transparency. But that puts him at odds with some folks who have their own interests to protect, those entrenched power groups. Then there's the whole succession issue, which just complicates things even more. Pope Francis hasn't hinted about who might take over after him, but Tagle's increasing visibility, along with a few others, makes you wonder what direction the church might go in. Conservatives are probably looking to back candidates who wouldn't continue the reforms that Pope Francis has started. This behind-the-scenes power struggle really highlights the battle over who will lead the church into the future. And it's not just a Vatican thing. These power dynamics are happening in dioceses all over the world, affecting how local leaders deal with various issues. There are still plenty of traditionalist elements that are very much at play, showing just how divided things are between unity and traditional Catholicism in today's church. So, how are all these dynamics going to shape the church as it tries to tackle the challenges of the 21st century? And what role do leaders like Cardinal Tagle play in these changes? Tagle's journey in the Catholic Church is far from over. He's a young cardinal who's really made a mark, especially when it comes to supporting the poor and marginalized. He's a strong advocate for human rights, respects immigrants, and stands up for the oppressed in his home country, making him a beacon of hope for progressive Catholics everywhere. But he's also trying to navigate the tricky waters of an institution dealing with deep-rooted internal and external struggles. One of Tagle's biggest strengths is his ability to connect with people from all walks of life. Whether he's speaking to a crowd in Manila or representing the Pope, he comes off as humble and relatable. Many people are longing for that shepherd-like leadership style he promotes, as opposed to the rigid, institutional approach that often dominates the church. By embracing a more open and dynamic form of faith, Tagle is seen as a bit of a revolutionary in the new Catholic Church. But he's building this legacy amidst a lot of volatility. While the number of priests and church representatives is declining in Europe and North America, the faithful are steadily growing in Asia and Africa. This demographic shift is a double-edged sword. It's empowering, but it also makes it tough to serve such a diverse congregation. Being a non-Westerner himself, Tagle has a good grasp of non-Western cultures, which puts him in a solid position to tackle this. Another thing people often associate with Tagle is his ability to blend tradition with modern trends. He's been involved in interfaith dialogue and discussions on climate change, and at the Paris Climate Conference, fairness and equity were big topics. He's clearly shown he's ready to engage with contemporary issues. But that hasn't come without some pushback. Conservatives in the church have accused him of straying from core doctrines, which highlights the ongoing conflicts within Catholic authority. How Tagle manages these conflicting demands will really shape his legacy moving forward. With all the changes still happening in the Catholic Church, the question of leadership is crucial. The good work started under Pope Francis needs to be carried on by future leaders. Tagle's influence in the Vatican and his loyalty to Francis's vision could very well make him a key player in shaping the future of the Catholic Church. So, will Cardinal Tagle's vision really connect with the huge and often divided crowd of Roman Catholics around the globe? There's been a lot of chatter about his impact, but it's still a work in progress. He's got some pretty big challenges ahead, especially since he's leading within an institution that has its own rules, while also trying to keep up with a rapidly changing world. He needs to create hope and unite people if he wants to make a mark. Could his leadership signal a fresh start for the Catholic Church focused on healing, welcome, and revival? Tagle has some serious competition too. A strong contender for the papacy is Cardinal Pietro Parolin, who's seen as a major player alongside Cardinal Luis Tagle. Parolin is currently the Vatican's Secretary of State, which means he's in charge of the Vatican's diplomacy and organization. He's not just a cardinal, he's got a lot of experience that puts him in a prime spot for the papal throne. Unlike Tagle, who leans towards a pastoral and reformist approach, Parolin has a background in diplomacy and is known for his conservative views. Being Italian, he's also rooted in the Catholic Church's core. As the Church faces modern societal changes, Parolin has earned respect from traditionalists thanks to his role as Secretary of State and his knack for navigating the Church's complex global relations. While Tagle connects more with everyday people, Parolin is seen as someone who understands the Church hierarchy well. He's been working to mediate between different factions in the Church, trying to find a middle ground in controversial issues. This skill has made him popular among those who prefer gradual changes instead of radical shifts. But some critics say his ideas lack the creativity needed to tackle today's challenges. This rivalry between Tagle and Parolin really highlights the tensions within the modern Church. Tagle emphasizes inclusion, compassion, and a focus on people, while Parolin represents the traditional diplomatic approach typical of Vatican leadership. For many, these differences raise important questions about the Church's future direction and what kind of leader it needs right now. Parolin's high profile also shows that Italian clergy still hold a lot of power in the Vatican. Traditionally, the papacy has been led by Europeans, especially Italians. Even though Pope Francis broke that mold, Parolin seems to signal a return to that trend. This adds another layer to the discussion about succession, pitting tradition against the new age within the Church. Despite coming from different backgrounds, both Tagle and Parolin care deeply about the Church's mission. Their contrasting styles highlight the stakes involved in choosing the next pope. Will the Church lean more towards connecting with regular folks and their initiatives, or stick with the established clerical hierarchy? The answer to this question will shape the Catholic Church's future for decades. With all the buzz about who might succeed Pope Francis, the competition between Tagle and Parolin gives us a glimpse into the struggles the Church is facing. How this contest plays out will not only define the Church's leadership, but also its ability to navigate a world that's becoming increasingly polarized and complex. What do you think about Cardinal Tagle as a potential new pope? And who do you think is more likely to take the papal throne? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more updates. And check out the next video popping up on your screen. You're gonna love it.